battlefield was alive with tension as the martial saints stood ready, their powerful martial spirits swirling around them like storms waiting to be unleashed. Among them was Tan Zhongyu, a fierce and imposing martial saint with a sharp ponytail that whipped in the wind. His piercing eyes locked onto Lu Shang, a young warrior who stood with an air of calm confidence, as if the chaos around him was nothing more than a passing breeze. Tan Zhongyu's eyes widened in confusion. He had already launched his attack, yet nothing seemed to happen. No explosion, no shockwave, not even a ripple in the air. The other martial saints remained on high alert, their guards up, their muscles tense as they waited for anything to happen. Seconds ticked by, and still, nothing. Lin Wenwen's mother, watching from the sidelines, gasped in shock, her hand flying to her mouth. She could feel the immense power radiating from Tan Zhongyu, a force so overwhelming it made her knees tremble. Yet, Lu Shang stood there, completely unfazed, as if the storm of energy around him was nothing more than a gentle breeze. Tan Zhongyu, hovering in the air like a vengeful god, began to release a surge of martial energy, his body glowing with an intense, almost blinding light. Lin Wenwen's mother couldn't believe her eyes. Lu Shang had forced Tan Zhongyu to unleash his full power, something she had never seen before. The martial saints, their eyes burning with hatred and jealousy, turned their focus to Lu Shang. Tan Zhongyu, his face twisted in fury, decided it was time to end this. He summoned his ultimate technique, cutting the sky. Thunder roared around him, the sound so deafening it felt like the heavens themselves were splitting apart. A massive energy slash, glowing with a terrifying light, descended from the sky, aimed directly at Lu Shang. The ground beneath them cracked and crumbled, and the air seemed to vibrate with the sheer force of the attack. But Lu Shang didn't flinch. Instead, a small, almost playful smile crept across his face. As the energy slash hurtled toward him, he raised just two fingers and with a sharp clink caught the attack midair. The force of the slash pressed down on him, cracking the ground beneath his feet and sending chunks of earth flying in all directions. But Lu Shang stood firm, his body unmoving, his expression calm. With a burst of power from his immortal cells, he deflected the slash, sending it crashing into the ground. The explosion that followed was deafening, a blinding flash of light and a shockwave that ripped through the battlefield, sending debris flying in every direction. The martial saint with the ponytail shielded his face, gritting his teeth as the blast tore through the area. Lin Wenwen's mother stared in disbelief, her mind racing with questions. How had Lu Shang blocked such a devastating attack? Her heart pounded in her chest as she tried to make sense of what she had just witnessed. Lu Shang, his eyes gleaming with joy, turned to Tan Zhongyu and smirked. "Your attack had some power," he taunted, his voice dripping with arrogance, "but it was so weak, I barely felt it." With a flick of his fingers, Lu Shang shattered the remnants of the energy slash into pieces, the fragments dissolving into the air like ash. The martial saints gasped, their jaws dropping in shock. Tan Zhongyu, his face pale and his hands trembling, couldn't believe what he was seeing. His best attack, the one he had spent years perfecting, had been neutralized as if it were nothing more than a child's play. But Lu Shang wasn't done. He leapt forward, his fist engulfed in a blazing aura of martial fire, and mocked Tan Zhongyu. "Why so surprised?" he asked, his voice cold and taunting. Before Tan Zhongyu could react, Lu Shang appeared in front of him, moving so fast it was as if he had teleported. With a single, devastating punch to the chest, Lu Shang sent Tan Zhongyu flying, his body skidding across the ground and leaving a trail of smoke and dust in his wake. Lu Shang's eyes sparkled with excitement, his lips curling into a wicked smile. "If you don't use your full power now," he warned, his voice low and menacing, "you'll never get another chance." Tan Zhongyu, though battered and bruised, quickly regained his footing. His eyes burned with rage, and for the first time, a flicker of fear crossed his face. "I underestimated you," he admitted, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. He stretched out his hand, summoning a swirling vortex of martial fire that crackled and hissed like a living beast. The ground beneath him cracked and split, and the air around him seemed to warp and twist as his energy grew stronger. The sky darkened, and eerie, glowing demonic eyes appeared above, watching the battle with an almost malevolent glee. Tan Zhongyu's energy expanded, spreading across the entire island like a tidal wave of destruction. The other martial saints stared in awe and fear, their faces pale and their bodies trembling. This was the true power of the martial saint of the East, a force so immense it felt like the heavens and earth themselves were bending to his will. A massive tornado of energy formed, swirling and roaring like a beast from the depths of hell. From the center of the tornado, a colossal sword made of pure martial fire began to emerge. The blade, over 140 meters tall, radiated an aura of destruction so intense it made the air itself feel heavy and oppressive. This was Tan Zhongyu's martial manifestation, a technique so powerful it could make even the strongest warriors tremble with fear. Lin Wenwen's mother stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no idea Tan Zhongyu had reached such a level of strength. The sword descended, its blade aimed directly at Lu Shang. The ground shook violently, and a blinding flash of light erupted as the sword came down, creating a shockwave that sent weaker martial saints tumbling to the ground like leaves in a storm. But when the dust settled, Lu Shang stood unharmed, his fists raised against the tip of the sword. Thunder crackled around him, and his body glowed with an intense, almost otherworldly light. With a roar, he unleashed the asterisk technique of the five fists asterisk, his fists moving so fast they became a blur. The colossal sword began to crack and splinter, the sound like shattering glass. With one final, earth-shattering punch, Lu Shang shattered the sword into pieces, the fragments falling to the ground like rain. Tan Zhongyu, battered and broken, emerged from the remains of his technique. Blood dripped from his mouth, and his body trembled as he cursed Lu Shang under his breath. But before he could say more, his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed, his body sinking into the sea like a stone. Lu Shang stood on the shore, his eyes filled with joy and triumph. He turned to the remaining martial saints, who stared at him in stunned silence, their faces pale and their bodies trembling. "Prepare yourselves," he said with a smirk, his voice cold and taunting. "You're next." The muscle-bound martial saint, furious at Lu Shang's arrogance, charged at him from behind, his fists glowing with energy. "Don't be so arrogant," he roared, his voice filled with rage. "We're martial saints too." But Lu Shang just smiled. Before the martial saint could land his attack, Lu Shang moved with lightning speed, his fist connecting with the man's chin with a sickening crack. The martial saint's body flew backward, crashing into the ground with a force that sent shockwaves through the area. Lu Shang's eyes gleamed with triumph as he turned to the others. "I'm going to give you all a beating," he said, his voice cold and menacing. Without wasting another second, he grabbed one martial saint by the collar and punched another with such force that their body crashed into the ground, creating a massive crater. Despite being martial saints, they were no match for Lu Shang. He moved through them like a whirlwind, his fists and feet a blur of motion. One by one, they fell, their bodies crashing to the ground as Lu Shang stood victorious, his eyes gleaming with an almost feral joy. The battlefield was his, and the martial saints were left in awe of the young warrior who had defeated them all. That's it today from Philify. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you won't miss an update. Stay awesome and I will see you in the next one.